Good morning. I'm Ken. This is Charlie. This is Linda. We are here to be with you to talk about a wonderful subject this morning. Because not only do we get older as individuals, we get older in the context of a relationship. Our relationships get older. Mm-hmm. And what's that about? How are we doing with that? Mm-hmm. Now, whether you're single or whether you're married, the way we get older affects our relationships. And this morning we're going to talk about how it affects our relationships and how to make sure that the way we're ripening as human beings is contributing to our relationships rather than detracting from them. Now, I am blessed this morning to have two amazing, dear friends who happen to be internationally known relationship experts and authors. Their books I'm going to tell you about in a little while. But they are going to be with me to talk about that, to have this conversation that we've been having over coffee anyhow, about, how do we age courageously as a couple? So I want to get right to it. Mm-hmm. And I really want to ask you guys, what are some of the biggest challenges, Charlie and Linda, that couples face as they get older together?
Well, I believe that there's a prevailing view that the best is behind us. And you have to believe that there's opportunity and it's possible that now and ahead, the best could come. And I think one of the good news, one of the best pieces of news about aging is that we get more okay in who we are. Yeah. And we can be more authentic, and we can be more real, and we can be in integrity. So what we think and we feel and we say and we behave is all lined up as one.
So is it important, so is the first step doing the work on yourself, that the best investment you can make into your relationship is really taking inventory and saying, how am I doing with this getting older thing? How am I coming along? Are there issues that are cropping up for me that are affecting my relationship?
Absolutely, and not buying into the prevailing view. It's kind of a downer to think that we're a has-been and the best is behind. And to keep that vision alive, do you know that
so
I
how
can
do you
be
look at
more
your husband
myself?
if your husband's dragging around? Let's say he's
not in this case, of course, but hypothetically.
If it's me, but if it's me, if I'm dragging around, and it's affecting Lisette because I'm thinking about retirement, or I just turned 65, or something's going on in my, or I'm watching a friend who's ill, or I'm going through something, and I'm feeling, or I'm standing in the room with a young guy, a young buck, and I'm comparing myself disfavorably to them. Yeah. How do you say that to somebody that you're married to or in a relationship with, that, hey, you're beautiful, you're wonderful, you're great. Yeah, you're in this season of life. You're not, 25 anymore, but can I remind you how wonderful you are? What do you say?
Well, you just said it, Ken. I think that what's natural for so many of us is to talk about what isn't working, what it is that, you're doing, or how you're being, or how you look that's really, not working for me. And that doesn't really help. I don't know if you've noticed that, but when that's what somebody leads with, then the first impulse is to get defensive. And the problem with getting defensive is that you're not able to hear the real message in there. So it begins with, I think, being able to recognize, what is it that I really want this person to understand, as opposed to how do I feel and how can I, dump that on them? What's my intention here anyway? And if you operate from that intention, then you're much more likely to capture their attention, because they're not feeling threatened, they're not feeling judged, they're feeling accepted, they're feeling supported. And all too often, I think we tend to lead with what isn't working, with the negative. Yeah. So it helps to keep that in mind.
That's so powerful. So if I were, coach me here for a second. If I'm talking to Lisette, and I'm noticing that she's being too hard on herself for something that's age-related. It's an age-related issue. Let's say she's comparing herself to somebody else. What would be the way that I could say that to her in a loving, caring tone that she's likely to really hear me and to feel the love of what I'm saying. Because I want to support her, and it's also affecting me.
But I believe that you have to start where she is.
Tell me.
Let her have some space to talk about her insecurity. Maybe her memory's not as sharp as it used to be. Maybe she doesn't feel like she's as desirable as she used to be, as sexy and as beautiful and firm.
So let her say that.
Let her have...
Don't try to fix her.
But not get stuck there. Because if she can outflow some of her misgivings and her insecurities, and there's definitely some not so good news about aging, there'll be a more expansive opening for when you do bring, I still think you're gorgeous, my beloved. Do you know, I still think you're sexy. I still think your mind is beautiful and you're more creative than you've ever been. But if you try to bypass it and try to put the good news in, she needs to be heard first, because she may be living with this negative self-talk, and she's brainwashed herself into thinking that she's not as fabulous as she was.
But as men, we're taught, aren't we, Charlie, we got to figure it out and we got to fix it.
It's our job.
It's our job to figure it out and fix it.
Yeah.
But that's not, when you're saying no. Listen. Understand, validate, be there in service to her, to listen to her, what she needs to say, let her vent, and so on.
Yes.
I think we have, we have a listener, Karen, who's been grieving the loss of a 17-year marriage, a marriage 17 years ago that ended with an affair. Let's speak to that for 1 second. Is that... Do sometimes people leave marriages because they want to trade up? We've heard the stereotypical, the guy who leaves who wants to trade up to the trophy wife or a woman. Might it be a situation like that? And also, what could we say to Karen about grieving? How do we help in a healthy way grieve the loss of a relationship and live forward in our lives?
This is a good example
that's what I was thinking
of
too.
making space for both. Do you know, she needs to be heard about the pain of the loss.
So if Karen were here, you'd say, Karen, you would ask her what?
There is room. Do you still love him? Is it okay with you if you love him till your last breath? Do you believe that your heart is expansive enough to love others too? Not to deny how important this man was to you. Maybe he was the love of your life. But can you see it from that perspective and not be stuck in a place where the pain and the suffering of the loss so overpowers you that you can't really enjoy your life and love others and exchange love with others?
But Karen would need that time to just air out, and to say what it was, and maybe after airing out and clearing that, she would be open to hearing. If we had her here, we'd probably say, you're wonderful, look at you. You have the courage to write in, to ask a question, you're obviously motivated. What a great woman. Hey, I got a guy, No, but,
like to fix her up.
Yeah. So Karen, this is an encouraging word and a three-way hug from all of us. Number one, to make sure that there's a place where you can vent and talk about your grief, your loss, and what's going on, and the challenges. And number two, to then perhaps be open to finding out that your best possible future is something that you can create by thinking and living forward. First you heal, and then you go forward and reimagine what might be possible. All of us have been through losses where we couldn't imagine another happy day. We couldn't imagine the possibility of loving again, of opening our hearts again. Our hearts have been so hurt. And sometimes it's that moment of reimagining and of faith and courage that we see a better possible future. So thank you for your call, and thank you for having the courage to step forward. So these are some of the challenges. What are some of the other challenges?
I want to just piggyback a little bit on what
go.
you just said, Ken, about reimagining. And I love that in the title of your book, too, by the way.
Thank you.
But it's so powerful because it's so easy for us to underestimate how attached we are to certain expectations and assumptions and beliefs that aren't necessarily true. And until we get free from some of those myths that aren't necessarily true, like, oh, I lost my beloved and I'm never going to be the same again. Well, in some ways, yes, it's true. Your life is forever changed. However, it's not necessarily limited to that negative change that we imagine. Can we hold the possibility that even I could be wrong about what I think is the inevitable future here? Because grief also involves something about anticipating a certain future. And when we're attached to being right about, oh, well, this, we spent all this time together, there's no way I'm ever going to be okay
done.
again. I'm completely done, and there's no way that this is ever... Well, be careful about what you plug your brain into or what you stay attached to. Your brain may go into that territory, but you don't have to buy it. You don't have to accept this is inevitable. Yes, this is an aspect of life. Grief is an aspect of life. Grief is an aspect of aging. Grief is not a solitary experience. It's a social experience. It can only be completed interpersonally. There's got to be a witness to the grief. And a witness is somebody who can be there with you, not judging it, being present with you to help you to neutralize some of your negative self-condemning thoughts that can be in there.
And growth is a social experience.
Yes.
And we need a team of support. Some of us are blessed to have a partner who can encourage us to take some of our old visions and dreams out of mothballs. Sometimes they've been in storage for decades. But when you retire and when you slow down, it's one of the good things about aging. We must slow down. And we can be contemplative to think about what I was thinking when I was a teenager, when I was a young adult, before I was involved in bringing my career up and bringing my kids up. And that you have the luxury of time that you didn't have at earlier ages. And you may find that there's a creative artist or there's an adventurer who wants to travel the whole world.
So having that confidant, whether you're married or single,
Right.
having people and entrusting them with these thoughts, with these feelings, creating the safety in your life so that there's at least one or two people who can become those confidants.
Yeah. And one or two is enough. You don't need a whole room full of people. One or two people who you have that level of trust with that you're describing.
They're difference makers.
That's enough.
I want to give an example. My best friend lives in Southern California. And when she was raising her child as a single mom and raising her career, she committed to her career. She worked very hard. And she retired, and I thought, oh my God, she's going to go into a really grief, tailspin.
As many people
because
do.
she's so identified with her
They're
career.
staring into the abyss.
Yeah.
And
they've lost their identity, their status.
Who am I?
Yeah,
what do I do now?
That's one of the great challenges.
Exactly.
She
of aging
didn't
as a
have
couple.
she didn't have a dark moment.
Yeah.
She went and signed up for
Boom.
a pottery course, and she found this creative artist that, before she was a mom, she liked to throw pots. And she's making this gorgeous pottery. She sent me one for my birthday. I love it. And she's thrilled. And she's in the pottery studio all the time because she's reclaiming a part of herself that had been stashed in the shadow realm for a while. And she's just very alive.
So there's a great question for anybody listening is, if I were going to reclaim some part of me, some passion, some unexpressed part of my being, as the seasons of my life changed, what would that be? And it might be something, not only is it going to enhance me, is it going to
But
fill
my
me,
contribution
but
to my community.
my partner's going to, my partner, my community is going to look over and say, look at Charlie do you believe how happy he is?
Yeah.
Do you believe how much fun? Do you believe how creative? One of the myths of this season of life, me turning 68, I've never been in a more creative phase of life. I am so creative. Times Lisette looks at me and says, will you please come up for air once in a while? I'm up at 4 o'clock because I have an idea, and so on. So these are some of the things. What are some of the others? And let's just hit them quickly. What are some of the other challenges of aging as a couple or aging that affects your relationship. We talked about retirement. Is that one? What about if one person can't keep up with the other person? You know, Lisette and I have a routine. I can't jog and pound these knees anymore. These knees have too many miles. So she loves to run. And when we go out for a workout in the morning, she does her run. We drive to up to Torrey Pines. She does her jog, her run. I do my brisk walk, and we meet on the beach. And that's our way of coming together. So she gets her needs met, I get my, that's kind of a solution that we've worked out. But it would be a tremendous challenge if she were trying to say, well, I can't run because Ken's knees,
too much sacrifice.
Too much sacrifice. She would be giving away a part of her own life, which really contributes to her vitality. So if one person, let's say, is slowing down really significantly, how do you talk about that?
Yeah, and it's not an if, it's a when, and it's a how, because we do slow down. I mean, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. However, when people slow down at different paces, which we usually do, and we have different needs that come up during that process and different ways to respond to those challenges, then we've got to do some work not only with each other, but with ourselves in order to let go of some of our beliefs and expectations about the way this is supposed to be. Because even if we know intellectually on some level that, yeah, you know, when I hit 70, then I can't expect to, you know, do the things that I did when I was 40 or 50. And, you know, intellectually we know it, but still, when we hit that wall, that reminder that you don't have the same body that you had 20 years ago, and here's the proof right here. You cannot do these things. There's a variety of ways that we can respond to that, and many people respond to it with anger, you know, as though, you know, hey, I've been betrayed here. What's the problem? I've been able to count on this body all these years. And what if your partner is much more able to accept, you know, the inevitability of this? Then the impulse is always to try to get them to say, oh no, don't you understand? It's really, look at all the benefits in this. You know, you shouldn't be so upset about it.
Get them.
That doesn't help.
Yeah. So no, get them.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Eliminate the word get them from your vocabulary. And you would say, what words would you put in place of get them?
Invitation.
Invite them.
Invitation.
Yeah.
And it's a big advantage if you have been running your relationship with a guideline of respecting the differences, you know, for years, then when the differences in aging show up, you're fortified. But it's never too late. So when you're challenged and one person has got more ambition than the other, one person wants to travel and the other person prefers to be a homebody, and maybe grandma really wants to spend a lot of time with the grandchildren and granddaddy might not want to, and it might be the other way. The differences are going to show up, but trying to coax them, you know, trying to make them into
get them to
Grandpa
see
Charming
it
or Grandma
the way you should see it.
It's not going to work.
And I'm wondering also how many of you out there have parents who are aging, and you're watching your parents butt heads. You're saying, what is happening to my parents?
Yeah.
They're either going at each other, or you might be saying, my God, this is always the way look how they're softening and opening to each other. This is always the way I've wanted them to love each other. So let's get to the other side of it, which is
the dark side. There's a dark side when couples don't listen well.
Yes.
And I have a very tender story that I read in the book The 5 Regrets of the Dying by that author in Australia. The one that touched me the most deeply, because I have a tendency to work a lot, was about this workaholic husband. And the wife wanted him to wind down his career because she wanted to travel the whole world. And he wasn't really listening to her. And she was pleading with him. We're getting older now. We have plenty of money. You don't have to be working so hard. I want you to retire. Let's go travel and see this beautiful world.
He was too driven.
He finally said, yes, I'm going to retire. And her heart soared. And then he said, in a year. And her heart went back to, oh. And you know, he meant it. He was planning to retire in a year. But in 6 months, she passed away. And then he had to live with that for the rest of his life. He could still travel, but he didn't get to do it and share it with her.
So the message is, the moment is now. This is the moment. This is the moment of decision. Time, nothing is guaranteed. So that if there's some element, this is a beautiful day in your life, and there's something for you to express to your partner or the people who are your confidants, something of your love to give away, now is the time. If there's something to do, a trip to plan, you might want to unplug from, we get into these obsessive modes. We become addicts to our own work, to our own way of life. And yet, at the end of life, so many people say, they don't say, oh, I wish I had, an extra day to work. Or I should have written
that's
one more
not written
article.
on anybody's tombstone.
No, it's the love that was not given away that hurts the most.
That's right.
That's the biggest
affection.
regret
It's
that
the
people have.
selfless love that wasn't given away.
Yeah.
And that's why, when I talk in the Courageous Aging book, and you guys pointed this out, this is leaving a legacy of love, which is one of the chapters. But for me, this is one of the most important things is, as we're getting older, it's legacy. We're talking about legacy. We're talking about what we're going to leave, and that's what your story goes to. So how do we? Let's go to the light side, the bright side, in the last few minutes that we have, and talk about what are the opportunities of aging courageously as a couple, or with the companion, friends, and confidants that you have if you're not in a relationship.
Kenna, I actually see that the challenges and difficulties and ordeals are the doorway into the opportunities. So when we try to avoid those things, when we're not willing to confront them and to accept the challenge that they're inviting us into, we are not able to see so clearly what the possibilities are that can come from engaging.
That's right. There would be no such thing as make-up sex.
That's right, and we know how good that is, right? Yeah. So no, it's really true. One of the things that makes precious things precious is that they tend to be rare. It's like you can't find gold everywhere. It takes a lot of work and time and effort to mine it and to discover it. And diamonds take millions of years, to be created.
But we expect our relationships to
exactly. No, it takes time. And when we get to as we age, it becomes increasingly more evident that, number one, we're not going to be around forever, and number two, we got more time behind us than we do in front of us. So there's a tendency to appreciate the time that we do have. And it's natural to do that. But you first of all have to accept the reality of the fact of your mortality.
So knowing what's precious, the opportunity is,
yes.
I know what's precious.
That's
now.
Right. Yeah. I finally learned what really matters.
What the priorities are.
With our maturity.
With that ripening.
Exactly.
With that life experience. We don't buy into the prevailing view that success is money, power, and status.
So that's another one,
that
which
we've
outgrown
Yes.
these cultural norms, which are myths and misconceptions.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That depth
We've arrived
of
in the reality.
Connection is where the joy zone is. So if we have come to the realization, then all we want to do is to make each interaction with the people who are important to us as meaningful and substantive as it can possibly be. We're not satisfied to just have a good relationship. We want to go for the gold and have the great relationships. We want to have meaningful conversations about things that really matter and invite people to be authentic with us by leading by example. And I think that's one of the beautiful opportunities. We're not so imaged out when we're older. We're really down to the core and the nitty-gritty, and the urgency of we may not have too much time left to do this propels us and puts some fire behind us to do it.
Right. So even if somebody watching is they're turning 40. They're interested in this conversation because they're turning 40, and they're saying to their partner, "Can you believe when did that happen?
How did I get that?
How did I get that?" Or maybe they're celebrating a 35th anniversary, and they're going, "We've been together 35 years."
Yeah,
God, you know,
it's like you finished a prison sentence.
So it could be anybody at any age. Let's talk about, here are the opportunities, and let's leave with those opportunities fresh in people's minds. Here are the opportunities of ripening as a human being that are now available to you, that are accessible, that are waiting for you to harvest. And what are those opportunities? Let's nail a few.
Well, I mean, we've spoken about a few of them already, but one of them is to love more deeply.
Yes.
Because the awareness of the preciousness of a true love, whether it's with a partner, whether it's with a child, whether it's a friend, we finally have awakened to the preciousness of that. So, I mean, how can you put a price tag on that possibility?
It's the biggest.
And Charlie, sometimes we've got to get, you know, for me, that loving equation has meant learning how to receive better.
Oh, absolutely.
I realized my receiver was broken.
Absolutely.
I'm such a good giver. Here I can give.
Yeah.
But my receiver, that sometimes my daughter, Lisette, my fiance, the people in my life, my friends, were trying to love me. Yeah. And I was missing it. I was skipping. I was so busy and caught up in other things that my receiver was broken. So we got to fix our receivers.
Every great lover is a gracious receiver.
Oh, I love it.
Isn't that sweet?
I'm learning.
Here's another one. Yeah. That we know ourselves well enough to know what our gifts are to give, and that we're on purpose.
Yes.
We're on task giving them, because our life experience is unique in all the world. If we look to our wounds in our life experience, we know what our special gifts are to give. And there is a joy that comes from giving what only we can give.
Let me ask you a question, the last question. Because so much time, energy is eaten up in dread and fear, because at some point this ride ends. Life as we know it ends, and it transitions into who knows what.
Who knows?
But how do we come to terms with what is the gift when somebody makes peace with the end of their life, with the last seasons, they're playing the back nine. You know, when somebody makes peace with that, with the enormity of what this life is, with the equation, with the proposition that we live and we don't live forever, with our impermanence. What is the gift to a relationship when I make peace, when I find some measure of peace? Not that we cross the finish line and forever, it's not an issue, but where we make greater peace with life as it truly is. What's the gift to ourselves and our partner?
Well, very, very briefly, I think that's one of the most powerful questions that a person can ask. So I appreciate you're raising it. But one of the things that I have experienced I don't see it as an event that I'm here, I haven't made peace, here I have. But it's a process. And as I have come to terms more with my mortality, with that recognition, and really getting it on a deeper level, what I've found is that all that's left then is to just open my heart and express my gratitude for what I have been able to experience in these years that I've been blessed to have on this planet, because I'm no longer looking to be successful. I'm no longer striving for something. I'm no longer needing you to give me something. All that's left is just this blessing of gratitude.
Yes.
So that's been my experience.
I love what you're saying, and for me it's also, when you feel blessed and you've made peace, then you also want to pay it forward. You want to take the good in your life. You want to put your house in order. You want to unclutter your life so something would happen to you. A mess isn't.
You don't want anybody to be left having to deal with that stuff.
So you want to pay the beauty and the good in your life forward. And I think that's a beautiful note on which to wind this. I feel so blessed to have you guys, not only as friends, but as my colleagues, And I love you both dearly. And I'm so excited about your new book. And I mean, I love all of your books, but the new one I think is going to be the best ever. I'm sorry. I just think, and would you say 1 second about, give me the title and tell me when it's going to be out.
Okay, well, the title is That Which Doesn't Kill Us, and the subtitle is How One Couple Got Stronger at the Broken Places. And that's kind of the theme of our work, is to use the challenges of life as opportunities to grow and get stronger. And we're expecting it to be out probably by the end of November.
I love it, Charlie. I thank you, and I also want to share with you that we just gave birth, as you guys know, 2 weeks ago. We've all been pregnant at the same time here. Yeah. It's the only way guys can.
Awesome book.
But
love the book.
I also want to thank
Practical
you for
book.
your support for Courageous Aging.
Oh, absolutely.
So until we see you guys again, you have a beautiful, beautiful Saturday, if that's when you're watching this or whatever day it is. And we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.